We're getting into other conversations, and our guest this hour is already seated, and we'll be looking at the efficiency in water resource supply. And the managing director of the Nyeri Water and Sanitation Company, Engineer Peter Kahuthu, is here with us this morning. Engineer, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Karibu and welcome to the... Karibu and welcome are the same word, is it not? But we can say it in two different languages. So it is all right.
You can even say it in three different languages. Yes.
It's also good afternoon and good afternoon again. Sure. Yes. So thanks for being here in the hot seat of the Situation Room. Sure. I'm glad to have you here. Water. Big issues around it. Big conversations around how we can actually be efficient and sufficient. So thank you for being here today. And we want to welcome you to today's conversation. CT has a proverb from a different African country every week. He'll tell you where we are this week, and he'll tell you the proverb. And then we would like you to, interpret that for us and tell us what you think about it. All right? Okay.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the Republic of the Sudan. Sudan is one of those countries that forms what we call the Coup Belt on the continent of Africa. This is our final proverb from the Sudan for this week. Next week we go to the Sahel, and will be the last week when we're looking at proverbs from countries within the Coup Belt, the continent of Africa. The gentle word gets the snake out of its hole. The Swahili language has a proverb which is also similar, but the Sudanese also have theirs. The gentle word gets the snake out of its hole. What do you think that proverb means, Engineer?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. Maybe I can start by introducing myself.
Okay. Or maybe you can interpret the proverb first, and then we can get to that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. To get the snake out of the hole, the way we understand it is there is a risk within a situation, and you may need to deal with that risk. So the snake is the risk. And probably the hole is the area of operation. So you have, and for you to operate, you have to get the risk out of that hole.
Yeah. Did you study literature in high school?
I did, though I was not so good, but I did.
No, I beg to differ. You were good.
Really good.
You were very good, because you've given that proverb very succinct and distinct application.
Thank you.
Yes. So that's why I asked the question.
Fantastic.
Yes. Maybe it was your teacher of literature who didn't know what they were doing.
Maybe they marked you on a bad day. 6 times in the year. Yes. But that's really great. So then getting into it in terms of, what you do. And when we're talking about efficiency in water supply, whether we're going from county to county, whether we're going countrywide, let's start off with, where we are in terms of this supply. And of course, coming from the Nyeri Water and Sanitation Company, one would assume that is your area of focus. But then it's also then, that we can apply this to the rest of the country. So please, Karibu.
Okay, thank you. We normally say water is an enabler in a different way, no matter how you look at it, or even when you look at the economy, when you look at the operations, our lives, water is an enabler. In fact, water is life, and the debate on water is quite critical, because the Kenya is considered as a water scarce country. Although, again, we believe probably we haven't done enough to exploit the available potential. Having coming from Nyeri, and I'm happy, and I'm very, very happy to be here today, because courtesy of the county government of Nyeri, when you look at the water sector reforms, the water function is devolved, and we are, Nyawasco is owned by the county government of Nyeri, where we operate. That is our area of operation.
Yeah.
In fact, Nyawasco is one of the over 90 regulated water companies in Kenya, and among the top performing WSP for that matter. So we appreciate the effort for each and every stakeholder. But water is our business, and we are very keen, and one of the issues we really look at is sustainability. How do you ensure we have water today, tomorrow, and for the generations to come? So much has been done, both by the national government and the county government. And also, when it cascades, it goes all the way to even the company's operational level, where we do so much to ensure that we supply quality water to each and every of our consumer. So that is a business, and that is why equally tomorrow we have a specific day set aside since 1993 to the World Water Day, which we are celebrating, and this year's theme is about glacier preservation, because glacier preservation, I think, it's one of the key sources of fresh water in the world. So in a nutshell, this is a very critical debate or discussion, because without water, I think there will be a crisis. In fact, we also say probably the Third World War will be about a water resource. Sure.
So we'll talk about sufficiency and efficiency of the supply. First of all, I mean, conversations just around, is there enough in terms of supply of water to go round?
We don't have enough water resource. Capacity is there, and not fully exploited, because we have other challenges. Because even when you look at the aspect of availability of that resource, there is more required to be done. And one of the key challenges we are having currently, as much as we are a water source country, is also about issues touching on finances. And that is why we have been very deliberate, companies, the national government, county government, to look at aspects, how best can we be able to generate enough resources to ensure that we are able to tap the available water resources for industrial purposes, for the domestic purposes, and the rest.
Please repeat what you've just said in terms of the availability of resources, adequacy of it, or inadequacy of it.
Yeah, one, we say Kenya is a water scarce country, and but still we have exploitation with gaps, where we would say water has not been fully exploited because of one challenges or the other. And one of them is issues of finances, because we need to get finances for us to, because water is available. For example, we have water underground, we have water in our oceans, we have water in our rivers, but for us to take it to the doorstep of our consumers, we have to invest, and that is where probably we find there could be a bit of a challenge. And also there is also a bigger challenge when you look at the constituents of water in the world. About 97 is water which has a really how do I put it? The saline water, 97% of the water in the world. Only 3% which can be exploited. And when you look at 3%, I think about 30% comes from the underground. So we need to invest for us to drill. We need to invest for us to tap water from the rivers, do the treatment, do the transmission, and also ensure each and every person, wherever they are able to get enough water for domestic, for industrial, and even for farming purposes. Yeah.
Yes. Let's look at the county that you work in, for an example. Does the county of Nyeri does it have a water problem?
That question, because I serve Nyawaska, and the MD of Nyeri Water and Sanitation Limited, and I'm one of the 5 WSPs. In Nyeri, we talk over 100% coverage, because what there is that area where we predominantly serve. The service area is regulated. So you're able to serve those areas regulated by us, given by the regulator, and go beyond the service area. And that is why we are saying our coverage could be over 100%. But when you look to the other WSPs or the water service providers, they may be having a challenge. So we would say probably. And the other thing is maybe the aspect of exploitation, because when you go to Nyeri County, we have 2 water towers. We have the Abadeas and the Mount Kenya. As we are drawing water from the Abadeas catchment, which has been able to serve us 100%. So it means if more resources were invested, probably we would be able to say even the other WSPs will be able to cover. Then there is also another aspect to it. When you look at the WSPs in Nyeri, they are 5 in number. They don't cover each and every area of the county. There are areas which are covered by other maybe community projects, or others which are not covered. Though again, it's also good to mention Nyeri has been rated as one of the best in terms of forest coverage. So a certain percentage may not probably require that reticulated water supply, apart maybe from the animals and such. So there is that funding gap, which we would really think that is one of the contributors why we are not able to serve 100% of our area of coverage.
You have 2 water towers. Beyond serving the county, surely that resource that you find in those 2 water towers serves other counties as well, doesn't it?
They do.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
And which are these counties that it serves?
We have Mount Kenya, which, Mount Kenya, the way it is designed or the way it is, it has quite a number of counties. We have Embu, we have Nyeri, we have Tharaka Nithi, we have Meru. I think those are the counties, the ones which meet at the tip of Mount Kenya. And then Abadeas, we have Nyeri, we have Laikipia, and we have Nyandarua, even Kiambu, even Nairobi here as we talk, because they also draw water from the Abadeas catchment. So they serve different counties at different levels. But for Nyeri, we have been able to exploit or to abstract 100% of our demand from the Abadeas catchment.
What contribution does the county government of Nyeri do to enhance its forest cover? Because there is a very direct correlation between forest cover and the availability of this resource we refer to as water.
There have been so much. One, maybe I can start with the institutional arrangement, because like now, we have the county government and we have the executive part of it, where we have also the different departments. And we have one which is the water, sanitation, and natural resources. And they have been very committed in terms of conservation, and we partner. So they support, and they also they allocate budget towards conservation, tree growing and such. And in fact, I had mentioned, we are lucky that Nyeri is one of the counties, in fact, it's the top in terms of forest coverage. And that is now. So there are so much, even us as a WSPs, we are doing so much to ensure we have a future for the future generations, because we may talk about being the top coverage today. And what about 10 years from now? And that is where we are also happy that the national government was very deliberate, equally, to come up with a national tree growing campaign targeting to do 15 billion trees by 2032. Nationally, the forest coverage is about 10%, in fact below 10%, which is not adequate. And we are quite ambitious. We want to hit 30% by 2032. So the county is doing so much, and then they also support the water companies, other key players. We have the Resource Users Association, that is the Water Resources Authority, and even community. And also those beneficiaries, those people also, like industries, who are getting water from those catchments, are also encouraged to continue playing part in terms of conservation.
So when we talk about efficiency in water resource supply, there is the aspect of, as the city has said, in terms of forestry and ensuring that it is protected. But there is the other aspect as well of reuse and recycling water resources that we have, and this goes hand in hand in ensuring that the resources that we have can serve us not once but severally. So in terms of Nyewasco, these information getting to the people, how are you having that conversation?
Yeah, you're right on point. The issue of conservation, the issue of efficiency is quite critical when it comes to water resource, because there is that aspect of recycling, reuse. And when you go out there, you find there are some other countries where they are able to recycle efficiently and utilize. For Nyeri, because of issues touching on topography, is something we have been thinking about, but we have not yet there. Because when you look at the cost of recycling vis-a-vis this available water supply, we find probably to be easier for us to just utilize, treat, and also discharge back to the environment, to ensure that the water we discharge back to the environment can be used by the players, or rather by the demands downstream. So in a way, at the moment, we haven't recycled enough, or rather we are not recycling, but that is a consideration, because like now, we are able to abstract 100% of our demand from Chania River. We draw it from Chania River. It means in the next 10 or so years, probably, because when you look at the trend of how the flow has been, the river will not be able to supply enough water for us to supply. So we have been also be strategic enough, trying to look at options, how best can we utilize or rather recycle what we are using. The other thing is also, and I have mentioned about it, ensure our processes, whatever we discharge back to the environment, can be utilized by the next consumer downstream. So that is how we are looking at it, and we believe we shall be able to assure future generations of adequate water supply. But when you talk of efficiency, again, it's about issues of input and output. You ensure that you get maximum out of the input. And in Nyeri, what we have ensured is the amount of water we abstract from Chania River, very least is wasted. In fact, the company is the best performing in terms of non-revenue in the country. We have been at around 17% when you compare with the national level, which is about 40%. So we have been very deliberate and ensure our processes are efficient. Water is quality. And again, most importantly, and due to the care of the environment, what we are discharging back to the environment can be utilized by the other consumers. Yeah.
So when we speak of water supply, are we talking about water in the taps into homes? Are we talking about efficiency when it comes to boreholes, rising water levels, for example, so that if we do sink boreholes, there's enough water? Are we talking about filling dams when you talk about supply, or is it all-encompassing?
It is all-encompassing because different, like now, water supply is devolved. And when you look at the over 80 or over 90 companies which are serving within the country, they have different sources. There are those who get from the dams, there are those who get from the boreholes, and among other sources. So it's a whole value chain we are talking about for us to assure that the operations we are carrying out today are quite sustainable. So it's about, it cuts across. Yeah.
Yeah, if it cuts across now, there is the aspect of, as we speak right now, the country is experiencing rainfall that is out there, but most of this water is seen as waste, just flows down all the way to the Indian Ocean. So in terms of water-saving technology, since when you talk about water supply, it includes everything. And we also know the fact that due to inadequate resources, coverage also becomes a problem. But sending the information on saving the water that we have, so in terms of water catchment, having tanks and whatnot, is that an area that you engage with the locals to just ensure that water supply is also there?
We do a lot, and we have been deliberate within the company and within the county, and also trying to sensitize our communities that we need to harvest water. In fact, even what we call roof catchment, because it will also save a lot of money. Because once you are able to harvest this free water from the rains, it means the bills will be able to go down. So something we have really engaged on in terms of conservation and again looking at it wholesomely. So much needs to be done once again. The issues of investment and such, so that at least we are able to abstract just enough, and you leave the rest to the others. The issues of dams is quite critical.
Yes.
Like now we are heading to the onset of rains, and I think there has been that communication. Rains may be even be bigger, may be heavier than what we had last year. And you remember what kind of a devastating effect they had on us. So there has been a lot being done by the national government and the county government. As in Nyeri, we have proposed quite a number of dams, and we have the Muga Dam and the Kalimeno Dam, and especially the Muga Dam. What we are looking at is harnessing service runoff. Whenever it rains, you are able to hold that water, so that during the dry seasons, we are able to supply that water to all of us. And the beauty of it, like now, the way the sector is, water companies serve domestic water. But when you are able to harvest or to harness that water during rains, it can be utilized for even tourism, agriculture.
I want to ask on that point. When we talk about damming water, usually you think about it's a large expanse, and I don't even know how many cubic meters of water can be stored. But then the question atop is that, and it sounds rudimentary, but still, the water is it's in open air. When you have to deal with issues of evaporation and things like that, how actually is that water preserved, and for how long that you can then, because we're looking at months between a rainy season and then a drier season where that water can be either monetized or you can be for use and piped. How long does it actually last?
The rate, I think the rate of precipitation, when you compare with the rate of, say, evaporation, probably, maybe the rate of evaporation is quite limited. And you know what happens? Water flows just by gravity, just flow by gravity. And it gets into the ocean, to the lakes, and it becomes contaminated because we said over 97% of water sources in the world are those saline water. So it is it's a good thing to enhance conservation or preservation for that purpose. And the bottom line, and maybe from my opening statement, I talked about issues of finances, of issues, ability to construct those mega dams. But you're happy that the national government have been very deliberate, even the previous one, in terms of doing quite a number of dams, so that whenever it rains, you'll be able to retain. And you know, the beauty of it, when it rains, the water becomes very murky, or the water becomes very turbid.
Yes.
So even the dams assist in reducing the cost of treatment, because once you dam it, it decants, isn't it? And you are able to reserve quite a lot of water, which can be taken even through several seasons. For example, if I can mention Nairobi, because we have talked about the quantity, I think the Dakaine Dam has a capacity of about 70 million cubic meters.
Yes.
It's quite a lot. It can serve, if you compare with the daily demand of about maybe 700,000 cubic meters, you can see how much they can be able to go through. So it is an important thing. But it requires commitment. It requires financial muscle or investment, so that at least it is implemented and achieved.
Indeed.
When you talk of other sources, because even in the air we have water. When you go out there are countries which are trying to harness water from the air. But for us, Kenya, and maybe some parts of Africa, not necessarily everywhere, it may be counterproductive. The cost of harvesting that water from the air, when we have rivers which we can conserve and protect for future generations, does not compare. So we are, as much as we continue to employ technology, there's also aspect of, is it viable? Is it a good thing? Or what options do we have instead of going to the air or any other area, or recycling for that purpose? Are we able to protect what we have in our rivers, in our dams, and also assure continuity of service provision?
Indeed. One of the things that we look at the MDGs, which became SDGs later, and water is a top one of those. Not just water anywhere you look at it, but to have water infrastructure set up, that piped water. And when we go to things like sanitation and flushable toilets, for example, to move ourselves away from, traditional practices, whatever those may be, where are we in terms of that? Because there's a supply of water, but then there's the mechanism that enables that water to be supplied, which is the infrastructure. How far would you say that we are in terms of making sure that that is optimum?
Thank you. And maybe to mention, I should have the time I was starting. It's also good to recognize that today is the International Day of Forest, and where deliberate activities are being happening, and especially in Nyeri and in Nyawasco, we are doing tree growings today in our catchment, and the theme for these years is forest and food. So we appreciate all the activity and support we are receiving across board, because we cannot do it alone. In fact, when you talk about finances, it's about mobilization of finances, collaboration and partnership. And probably next time we should be able to engage even the space to join us. We are in a season, so probably did that in a season. We shall be able to do that. And going back to the question, the infrastructure are quite important because you have talked about infrastructure to get water from the source to the consumer, isn't it?
Yeah.
So much requires to be done, and water supply entities are at different levels. There are those like Nyeri, we can say we can pride that we are able to supply water 24/7 at the tap. But when you compare what Nyeri did, for example, it's a bit historical. In those years, 20 years ago, so we were able to invest over 1.2 billion Kenya shillings through commercial financing. So those were deliberate actions. So it boils down to availability of resources. Do we have enough resources to lay the infrastructure for us to be able to supply water? But when you look at it nationally, the government has also been very deliberate, because even when you look at Water Act 2016, it has institutional framework where it delegates laws and responsibilities. At the national level, you have the issues of policy, and then also the issues of regulations, and then we go to the county government or county level, all the way to where we have services. So the bottom line is about it's about resources, which we don't have enough, and across the board, we can say probably the issues of sanitation coverage is about 16%, which is quite low. Maybe water could be a bit better than that, but still, so much requires to be invested on. And from the analysis, we require the gap we have. We require a trillion Kenya shillings in terms of investment for us to be able to meet the SDGs. And you are aware, the SDGs are not far off. The timelines are not far off.
They're not.
2030, maybe 5 years, or even say 4 years. So it is a tall order. But if you are able to invest, first to mobilize, to invest the little we have, I think step by step we should be able to make some coverage. We may not be there yet. It's still a tall order, but I believe those small commitments here and there would do much. And then also the aspect of technology, employing technology, so that if you are in a setup, say, of a company, and just giving an example, you are paying so much for a certain process, say for a water treatment process, and you adopt a technology which will save you 50%. That 50% left can be utilized to ensure you invest in terms of infrastructure and such.
Engineer, is there any part of this country that never gets rain at all? At all? Meaning, it doesn't matter what you do, there's no day it gets rain?
No, I doubt whether there is. There isn't.
Yes. Sure. My thoughts exactly. Now, I asked the question because when we look at the subject of sustainability, you want to look at resources that are readily available. Earlier on, you talked about the harvesting of rainwater. It's talked about, but given the deluge we experience at times, and sometimes even in places which don't get rain, and what is reported that water goes to waste. If we were to harvest at the very, very domestic level of just houses or homes or within a small community, using very basic technology, it may not solve the problem, but would it not alleviate this problem that we keep talking about? Because waiting for the government to find the resources to build the dams that are actually needed, surely there is intermediate technology that can help alleviate, so that instead of facing those harsh times when there's no water, the harsh times are reduced significantly between those cycles. And in the process, other measures such as tree planting and other things that are done are augmented, so that within maybe 2 cycles or so, that problem ceases to be what it was before.
Yes.
Is it possible such things to be done?
It is possible. It is possible, and those small actions at that grassroots levels, because even when you look at a homestead, for you to harvest water, and for us who grew up in rural areas, you never used to have tap water, but you had water throughout, because probably there were a bit of investment in terms of tanks and containers, and maybe rivers were not far off, and we were able to survive without tap water. So those small actions and sensitization could really play a key role, even to uplift the living standard at the household level.
Shouldn't it go into, shouldn't it go into the policy at the policy level? I remember a couple of years ago, for example, it came from government that any new, I believe there were new estates after a certain year, it was now mandatory for you to have solar panels.
It would
at
be
the very least
for
heating water. So now we're looking at a water issue, and we look at sanitation at 16%, 5 years away from the establishment of the SDGs, which we all ratified as nations. Wouldn't it have to be at the policy level, whereby you're saying, okay, fine, moving forward, if you're developing an estate, for example, have underground tanks that will be for the sole purpose of collecting rainwater, because you will have flooding. If you have an industrial park, for example, make it a mandatory thing that you have overhead underground, however you will be able to tap that water, where you have the pipage that then goes down into that. Wouldn't it make sense to have it at the policy level? Otherwise, we'd be talking about these issues, ad infinitum, without getting the results that we're looking for, with very little time left.
Sure, it would be, and policy starts at the top, as I mentioned about the institutional framework. There is that top. At the top, we have the issues of policy, and then also we have the operationalization mechanism, so that it boils down to the grassroots. And probably there may be a way of how is it monitoring or following up to ensure that some of these policies, or rather the identified ways of operationalizing the policies are being adhered to. And then I think there is also the aspect of change of attitude also. I would agree with that, change of attitude, because sometimes, and maybe when we have enough, or rather we tend to waste more. And as I was saying, if you did the rain, the roof catchment harvesting, it is to save your bill, and maybe the money you'll be able to save there, you'll be able to do some other things. And then also go to the institutions also, those lower institutions, say schools and such, and invest, support the institutions and such. And then also embrace the aspect of conservation, because as much as we talk about these rains today, if you don't do so much, even the rains probably we are looking at today will not be there in the next few years. So it is quite complex, but it is achievable, and we totally agree that policy will serve. And not that we don't have policies, there could be some few policies here and there, but now again sensitization to the local consumers or at the grassroots levels.
There is within the Water Act a regulation that commenced on 7th April 2021, the Water Harvesting and Storage Regulation, Legal Notice 44 of 2021, meaning it exists. Then there's always the question of enforcement. How then do you ensure that it is done? Because if, as you say correctly, there are people in the rural areas who survive on what is actually available, and they do not have piped water. It was historical, but even now, the people who do just that. Now imagine, with that intermediate technology applied and enforcement ensured, or let's talk about even the city. I know there were municipality laws when I was a child, and maybe when I got into early adulthood, you couldn't put, it was required of you when a house was put up, it was required that the gutters, and the storage
for collection.
It was a requirement. So the issue of water was considered, but somehow we didn't seem to have evolved and moved whatever existed then to the next level until 2021 with this act. But then the enforcement. How do you get this to be enforced?
Yeah. In fact, that is one of the key, also maybe one of the other areas, the enforcement, because we normally say we have laws even across board, not necessarily even in terms of water. Across board we have laws, but the issue of enforcement and also people knowing responsibilities, I think, and that is why we have the aspect of now national government. You go to the county government, there are those other institutions who play those roles, and also we drill it down to the community level. As we have a responsibility because we partner with the community, they are our consumers. We do it, we sensitize them, even in our write-ups, as much as it may be a competing kind of engagement, we try as much as possible to engage, to mobilize. So aspect of county government has a key role to play in terms of mobilization, in terms of sensitization. And, the way we normally talk of the national government and administration, the chiefs and such, they have a very key responsibilities to ensure. And also, it can also be inculcated in schools. You see, like the way we talk of conservation, even keeping the environment clean. That, if it sticks in your mind at that age, I think even as you grow, you may not be able to leave it behind.
Now, Engineer, you talk about conservation, but let's talk about the fact that Nyawasco and other WSPs have invested heavily in ensuring that water is provided for the masses, for the populace out there. But we also deal with the fact that we have vandals who are destroying infrastructure that supply, which affect the overall goals of dealing with that. So in terms of dealing with that and applying technology and also just sending the message home, because at times you find someone is in the kitchen washing dishes, but the water is just running throughout. Pipes are leaking, no one bothers in fixing that, and that overall affects the distribution and supply of water. So to just have a discussion on that. What should the Kenyan Mwananchi do in ensuring that they equally pull their weight in this sector?
You are right on point, because the issue of vandalism is quite critical. It's quite one of the biggest challenges we are handling at the moment, even in Nyeri. And it cuts across, not necessarily even in the water infrastructure, even telecommunication power, everywhere you go. But we are hardly hit by the issues of vandals, and we have tried to partner. And this juncture, I would really want to appreciate the role the Tana Waterworks Development Agency plays. Again, I'm here courtesy of Virginia Gishoke, the CEO of Tana Waterworks Development Agency. We partner, and through the national government, or being a national government entity, they host what we call the Water Police Unit, which has partnered with us and local administration to deal with vandalism. In fact, as we speak, we are losing quite a lot, over 500,000 Kenya shillings per month. And when you talk of vandalism, first it interrupts services, because once you shut off the water supply, there's a loss of business, because a loss of sales. There's also aspect of increased non-revenue water, because quite a lot of water goes to waste. Human labor, because you have to go procure those items which have been vandalized, and also again come and install them again. So when you look at the whole picture, it's quite a lot. In fact, 500,000 probably could be less. It could be more than that. And we have partnered with the local administration, the chiefs, engaging the community, engaging with the scrap metal dealers, water police unit, the staff themselves also, because they are our ambassadors out there, and also partnering with the consumers, because by the end of the day, when something happens, most of the time, you confirm maybe whoever was involved was seen. And so we partner with the community so that we are able to get those reports for us to speedily rectify the situation. And that is what we are talking about, also efficiency. How much time do you take once a water supply is interrupted? How much time do you take before you reinstate? But you are doing it at a cost. So we are calling upon, and also the media, because we have had several engagements with the media to sensitize the public the importance of maintaining these infrastructures. They are not enough, and the little we have, they are vandalized. But the other thing also, because we are not also sitting pretty, just waiting for vandalism, we are also adopting technology, trying to go for those appurtenances, fittings and pipes, which are less attractive to the vandalism. Because what we have noted, what they are more interested in is brass, that brass material, or that metallic material. So you are able to do with the IPS, PVC, and HDP types of material. It means it will reduce the appetite for the vandalism. But again, it is also an economic sabotage, because if it happens at a large extent, it means so much. If you have, like in Nyeri, if you don't supply water to highlands, to Coca-Cola, it means they may not produce. So economically, they will be going down, and those probably, depending on them, they will be really be affected. So we have those avenues, mobilizing, partnerships, adoption of the current technology, and the most important, enforcement. As we speak, you have quite a number of cases in court, some in jail, who have been prosecuted because of that, getting involved with the aspect of vandalism. Sure.
You know that, sorry, go ahead and do.
No. Okay. As we look at, I think about all the different, and this is just so many moving parts, so it must be, quite a challenge to deal with all of them. But then I think about the water sources in this country, and the natural water sources, whether we're looking at rivers, lakes and such, and I think about the Nairobi River, and I've been privileged to see different parts of the river. Unfortunately, I've never seen a clean part of the river. And that, whether that is due to human waste, or whether that is just due to irresponsibility, or whether it is due to effluents being then, run off into the water sources, east to west, the sources of water also are a pain to be able to think about, which obviously contributes to, when we talk about the supply and efficiency, rather the sufficiency and efficiency of the water supply. What is being done to ensure that actually you do have water sources running clean? You know, we've talked about Nairobi River cleanup for years, but still seems to be a pain point.
I think the issue of environment is quite critical, and because when the environment is polluted, it means even the water sources will be polluted. Absolutely. And such. Maybe I would want to go back where I was saying some of these attributes can be inculcated even from the formation stages, where throwing away a waste in Haure is wrong. Even within yourself, you feel it is wrong. Though we also have the aspect of attitude. Then again, it also goes back to inadequacy of the infrastructure. If we have, say, overflowing sewerage or sewerage systems, because probably the ones we have were done so many years ago, maybe we haven't invested enough for us to take care of everything which is being generated could cause that. But I also think if there are those strategies in place where waste is well managed, because we say waste is not a waste until you waste it. So it means if you don't waste it, you can recycle, the aspect of recycling and all that, reuse and all that. So I think there is more effort may also be required to be put, and I think that responsibility goes down to the county government. And first we have to say there are policies in place already. Then the implementation of those policies, so that we are able to manage our waste properly. We are also able to sensitize, and also enforcement. If for example, there are bylaws saying you should not drain even grey waters, sewerage water into the rivers, and you are apprehended. Yes, I think stern action should be taken against you. So, but there is also the aspect of investment. I still believe there is the aspect of investment, investing more, and also aspect of reuse and recycling, so that the literal waste or the much waste is generated, instead of just throwing it away, is properly handled to ensure that we take care of the environment.
You know, the act that I mentioned earlier on, 2021, we've seen other sectors of government benefit from what I'm about to say, and the act allows for it. That is private-public partnerships. And it actually allows a private individual, in compliance with all the regulations that are required, to actually develop, operate, and get into the business of actually supplying large quantities of water through dams and so forth. I'm paraphrasing. What I'm saying is, given that we've understood the limited resources that the government has, what strides have been made to get in private individuals to actually invest? Because there are investors who might be interested in investing in the water sector.
Yeah, that is a good question, City, and we totally agree the issue, and that is what we are talking about, mobilizing resources in different ways. Like us in water sector, we believe we rely almost 100% on tariffs, but sometimes tariffs are not adequate, or because of one reason or the other, we are not able to generate enough. So even the national government, I think there is even an act, I may not be able to specifically quote it, the private-public partnerships, which
yes, there is an act.
You tap resources from the individual. You have the money. I can be able to deliver. You pay me maybe with a certain arrangement
of revenue share and so forth. Yes.
So that is there. In fact, in the water sector has been at a high gear. We have had quite a number of several forums where we are seeing how best are we able to tap additional resources from the traditional ones. In fact, now that you have mentioned about resources, in June we have Water and Sanitation International Conference organized by WASPA and Ministry of Water and Irrigation. We have the Council of Governance and such, and where different stakeholders will come together and try to look opportunities of alternative financing, sustainability missions and such. So there is a huge potential in public-private partnerships, which the government, even the individual entities, can exploit and get value for money for the improved or enhanced service delivery.
Yeah. So, what are we looking forward to in terms of low-hanging fruit? Things that we can actually say in a year from now, we can actually see that progress has been made, and you're making some inches closer and closer to the goals, of sufficiency and efficiency.
What you may be looking at is the aspect of conservation. I think it will assure us those small activities you do at an individual level, and like now tomorrow we have that engagement with Tana Water Works Development Agency in Laikipia County, where the cabinet secretary in charge of water services will be in Laikipia, somewhere we call Tigidi, to do conservation, to celebrate the World Water Days. The other aspect is also thinking. Sometimes we say thinking out of the box. Now, in fact, thinking without the box now, where we may talk about sewer sanitation in Kenya at 16%. It requires a lot of investment for us to hit even that percent. Can we also look for other solutions, grassroots solutions? There are some areas, even say in the next 50 years, they may never have sewerage. What solutions do we have? We go down there and come up with solutions which, if we have a certain village, say in Nyeri, say in Nairobi, say in Kisumu, how can we be able to enhance sanitation coverage within that area without necessarily looking forward to those big projects, because they may take time.
Indeed.
And the other issue I would really want to talk about is also continued sensitization, change of attitude, and enhanced commitment, so that even with those small activities we do here and there in terms of conservation, in terms of efficiencies, looking out for available technologies, and technologies which are not so expensive again.
Yeah.
We need to have even locally available technologies. I think it would go a long way to ensure we soldier along towards achieving SDGs, and especially SDG number 6 talks about water and sanitation for all.
Absolutely. Things to look forward to. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and keeping abreast of those conversations and those issues, I think, is very important. So we thank you so much. Engineer Peter Kahuthu is the Managing Director of the Nyeri Water and Sanitation Company, and has been our guest this hour in the run-up to World Water Day, and to really celebrate, but to also remember the work that needs to be done, and hope that that remains front and center. Thank you for being here this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.